Welcome back to another Shut Up and Sit Down video about Lord of the Rings based stuff. Can't get enough of these bobbits. This is Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth, designed by Anton Bowser and Bruno Cathala, and published by Repos Production. This is a two-player head-to-head card game that also features little people on a map and a unique slidey plastic Nazgul mechanism. Ooh! And great news, if you don't really care all that much about Lord of the Rings, that might not matter, so keep watching. Having said that, there's statistically a good chance that you found this channel via our review of War for the Ring, which means mathematically it is likely that just like me, you are hotforsaruman.com. And that's why we also checked out the card game re-implementation of War for the Ring not long ago. A condensed version of that game that missed the war game orcs on a map energy of its older, bigger sibling, but still reliably churned out the juicy structure of that epic story. And hey, I really wanted to love Battle of the Five Armies, the wargame prequel full of goblins and eagles that was a really solid wargame, but lacked the breadth of characters and lore to give these heartstrings, specifically that traditional Tolkien tug. I wasn't sure that I needed another Lord of the Rings game in my collection, but gosh, with 4 W's, goofy style, this game's a bit of a diamond. And maybe that shouldn't be surprising to me. After all, this is a retooled version of 2015's Seven Wonders Duel, a game that we at Shut Up and Sit Down thought was merely okay. But it's also currently the 19th most popular game on Board Game Geek. And so while all reviewing is personal and subjective, and there's no such thing as an objective review, it is also possible that in this instance, we might have just been a little bit wrong. And all I know is that this Gollum-based box undeniably just slaps. This game is punchy, exciting, and so fast that you can finish a game in 20 minutes, then probably just play it again there and then, at least twice, at least 2 more times. And that's partly because this game is very simple. You have this attractive collection of cards laid out, and players take it in turns to take one card from the bottom of this abstract structure, immediately placing it into their personal tableau of cards what they have taken. But you can't just take any card you'd like, madam, no. You can only choose from cards that are completely uncovered. So, as cards get taken from the lower sections, new cards become available. Half the cards are always visible, right from the start of the round, but the other half are unknown. You're only going to flip and reveal those cards at the point at which they become available. So taking that plump pot of gold coins looks enticing, but Kevin, you've literally got no idea what card you might be offering as a choice to the other player. It could be an elf, Kevin. You might be giving them an elf. Cards that you pick don't go into your hand, because in this game, you don't have hands of cards. Everything goes straight into your personal tableau. And these cards are going to provide you with the resources you'll need to get better cards later in the game, or they're going to push you towards one of the 3 ways that you might just immediately win the game. Collect a bunch of rings and you'll rocket across this landscape like a lurid hedgehog. The good guys are trying to get to that sweet, sweet volcano, while the original horse bad lads just want those boys dead. Get to the end of your track and that's a win. The second way to win is by being annoying and being everywhere. It's more commonly known in board games as area control. Military cards let you place new units in specific regions, and sometimes move existing ones around. The ensuing conflicts couldn't be simpler here. If you both have units in the same space, you just keep removing one of each until one of you doesn't. And if at any point any player has a physical presence in all 7 of these regions, then stop the clocks, you've won the game. Finally, you can win by having friends. Collect all 6 flavors of buddies: hobbits, elf, human, dwarf, ent, and wizard, and you've won! Although admittedly when Sauron is collecting these people, it's probably not to keep them as friends. And at this point I should say that while your imagination might be filling in some of these gaps here to make it feel like the opposing factions are doing something different in the game, you quite literally are not. One player gets yellow pieces and the other gets grey pieces, and that's literally it. You'll play through 3 rounds in total, each with its own deck of escalating cards and each with a unique shape of cards to pick from. Triangle, triangle but upside down. And oh my gosh, it's the ring. It's the ring from the name of the thing. But what do these cards actually do? Money, just like in real life, acts as a resource that you sometimes directly need, but can also be used to just smooth over all sorts of other little problems. I want that man, I want that castle. If I don't have the resources, then I can just spend gold to make it work. But mostly you'll want these permanent resources. If you've got the symbols that meet the cost criteria on a card, then you can just take it. If you don't have the resources and you can't afford the money, then I'm sorry, you can't have that card. But don't worry, this is a game that says Duel on the box. And because of that, it has to stay true to the original spirit of dueling. I.e., yes, we are going to try and murder each other at any cost, but before that, at some point, I'm going to slap you in the face. Because instead of just taking a card on your turn, you can always trash it instead in exchange for money. Because if I can't have it, then neither can you. And I'm going to earn myself 2 little dwarven dollars in the process. And so it's these more standard resource cards that basically allow you to mostly make things happen. But some cards have unique symbols on them. Symbols that might then appear on cards in the next round, letting you skip the normal requirements for taking that card because you've got a special acorn, or a fish, or a delicious hot stew. Mechanically, it allows players to continue to move in the same direction that they started in originally. If you go big into war in the first round of the game, then you've already got all the swords and armors that you need to get more armies in the next round. Who wore this armor before? Shh, we don't ask questions. But I have to say that the thoughtful theming of these unique little symbols adds a real nice touch of texture, giving a pleasing shape to the arc of the game. Being friends with a hobbit makes it easier to befriend the next hobbit, and you keep collecting hobbits until you fill the hobbit bus. There's something that just makes you feel special. It peppers the game with moments of delight. Oh, I've got that one. I can get that for free. And above all else, honestly, this game bleeds delight. Look at these shield tokens you get to pick from when you've collected different sets of faction cards. They all give really powerful bonuses. And getting to pick one of them while your opponent looks at you, frowning, thinking, oh, you're not gonna take that one again, let you do that thing in the last whole game, are you? That was awful. Priceless. This is why we board games. And then how about you get the resources and the gold together to build some flipping structures? Yes, I get to place a tower token on the board, giving me presence in that location that can't be affected by enemy units. And that's nice. And it's also nice that I get these additional bonuses, but also I get to take this big chunky cardboard token with a picture of a castle on it, and I get to keep it. That's my castle now. I'm gonna put it in my wallet, and I'm gonna tell everyone that it's a picture of my girlfriend, and that yeah, she is beautiful, but she goes to another realm, you wouldn't know her. And so it's almost a ridiculous shortcoming that, in contrast, the cards feel a little bit lighter and flimsy than I would have liked. Although that may just be that I've not had this game for very long and I've already played with it a lot. But everything else in this production is a testament to the importance of materials and tangibility. The drama of these wooden pieces on the map and the way it makes your gut clench a little just to see so many nice boys suddenly in my Mordor. And even this ring tracker, arguably a complete gimmick. It doesn't need to be that. It could look just like this. And yet it does make the game more exciting, propping up this illusion of a push and pull chase that doesn't actually exist. And you know it doesn't exist. They're just two identical point trackers. And yet, run little hobbits as they're gonna get ya! And I mean, gosh, I am glad that it didn't look like this, though. I think they used artists and designers to make this game. It's probably a good call. And while we're on that topic, I feel it might as well at this point go without saying, but what a gorgeous spread of work by Vincent Dutray. The amount of vibrancy they've squeezed into the art here, both in terms of the character and also just straight up saturations of color. I think it might be his best work to date, bringing a genuinely new flavor to the source material here without ever feeling jarring or so different that it's wrong. But as I mentioned earlier, if you aren't really that into Lord of the Rings, I don't think that it matters here. Now, War for the Ring felt like a deep dive into a cozy bubble bath of lore and implications. But to fully enjoy this game, I think you'd be fine if you sort of watched one of the films on someone else's screen whilst half asleep on an aeroplane. The source material fleshes out the flavour of the card types, yes, and it does make the multiple different win conditions much easier to remember. But that's it. Underneath the surface level flavour is just a ridiculously satisfying, sharp, solid little game. Learning and playing is easy enough and fast enough that you can quickly dig down into all the cards and the potential tactics. It doesn't take long before you're both seeing the implications of taking this card or trashing it, looking across the table to see what resources exactly they have and working out how you can use that to just cause them a little bit of trouble, just a tiny bit of trouble. Right from the very first turn, every choice feels significant, and on the rare turns where your card choice doesn't seem to matter as much, ideally you'll have timed it so you'll instead spend the turn building one of the towers, instead of taking a card, leaving your opponent to take one of the cards that neither of you wanted. It's probably quite clear at this point, but this game absolutely, 100%, it's an easy shut up and sit down recommend. It's quick enough to get to the table and play in 20-25 minutes, but also is chewy enough that you're going to want to sit and digest it over a full afternoon. I'd be reticent to say that this game is so easy that anybody could play it, but it is a very simple game, and I really do think it helps an awful lot that you need such a very basic knowledge of the source material and the overall story to help some rules that might otherwise be slippery. Those rules like, how do I win the game? What are the 3 ways I can win again? Tying that into the story of the world makes those rules so much stickier and allows the game to be slightly more fiddly and complicated than it otherwise would have gotten away with for more casual players. I get asked an awful lot, can you recommend me a game for 2 people, for kind of nerdy people who don't really play board games? And this is now my go-to suggestion for that specific ask. It sounds specific, but I swear most of the time when people, strangers, family, friends, people on the internet just say to me, can you recommend me a game? It's that specific question. So if you're watching, it's this. If you really don't want to play a Lord of the Rings based game and yet you've somehow got this far into a video review, then interesting. I'd recommend Compile as a chewy 2-player head-to-head game. And if you are a Lord of the Rings head, then as I mentioned earlier, we've reviewed a whole bunch of different games in this universe now, so please do go and have a peruse through those and work out what's the right game for you? What's the right Lord of the Rings game experience for me? I'm still really not sure about the plastic score tracker. There's just something so earthy and colourful about the rest of the experience. There's something about acrylic that's a little bit tacky, but it does do the job. And it does, it's not really got many big criticisms here. That's all I've got. My brain's empty. Great game. If you enjoy our work and you want to see more video reviews of board games, then you might consider chucking a couple of pounds, dollars, euros. We review games, we don't get paid by publishers, we follow our heart and we just look at games that are good or interesting, or sometimes tell you when they're very popular and they're not that good. In this instance, obviously I've said a game that is incredibly popular at the moment is good. But yeah, it's nice to be in agreement with the world. I feel less alone. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.